Hello everybody, welcome to episode 144 of Shelf Review. Today we'll be going over Chapter 8 of Haunted Peak entitled Smile. Now, this chapter starts off with Ebihara mentioning about how he needs to throw the oil out of the pan after having cooked the hog meat. And ultimately, he ends up speaking with Miko, and he's like, "Oh, I can tell you my story about how my wife ended up killing me twice." And we see ultimately as Miko's like, "No, you ain't gotta throw out the meat." So Ebihara's like, "Yeah, you want to hear my story?" And he's like, "Yeah, I want to hear the story." And Miko's like, I'm actually start feeling sorry for him if I hear the story. But yeah, so we see then as Ebihara starts going into his story about him and his wife and their relationship. So we see as Ebihara in college, in his third year of college, he was a member of an intercollegiate basketball team, and they ultimately ended up throwing a party. Now at this party, other girl was invited, and she seemed very young because she was very small and thin. And Ebihara presumed that she was a minor, so he tried to get her to go away. Ebihara W not liking minors, as apparently many of the characters in Haunted Peak do. Ebihara the goat for that, even though it's the most simple thing you don't have to do. But yeah, so Ebihara tries to tries to run her off and get her not to be there because minors don't need to be drinking and minors don't need to be around that type of crowd. So we see as he tries this, but ultimately he learns that she is in fact the same age as him, and she was there just because she had been pressured into by the manager of the team, who was a fellow friend of her, the woman friend, and we see ultimately as Ebihara, since he was pretty extroverted at the time as compared to now, he just tried to start to talk to her a little bit, and ultimately he ended up noticing that she looked like a domino, frozen still there and standing up, so he ultimately called her a domino. And he felt bad instantly and started apologizing to her like vehemently and all that. And ultimately she just smiled and said, "You're awful," in like a joking manner. But yeah, so after that, we see then as we get a breakdown to the relationship that Ebihara was in at the time. He was in a relationship with an older woman who had recently gotten a job in the real world, and now she no longer respected Ebihara because he was just a bum at college, not working an actual 9 to 5, no blue collar going on there. I know my voice just swapped up there, but still. So, we see this, and then ultimately we see as he ends up breaking off that relationship because he just didn't feel respected, and he felt like he was wasting his time putting his all into it. Because he mentions about how he worshipped the ground she walked in, and he just put all of his effort into it. But then after that, we see as he starts to pursue this other woman, the one that was at the party who called him awful and all of that, the Domino woman. And so we see as he starts pursuing her, but ultimately she denies him, saying that they wouldn't be a good match. However, he keeps trying, rallies his fellow basketball players to be wingmen for him, and ultimately she ends up accepting. So time progresses, he puts his all into a relationship, everything's happy. At 26, he ends up getting married to her, and then 3 years later, they have their first child, which is a daughter. And everything's going great for Ebihara. He's loving it, he loves his family, he is putting his all into it, he's doing as best as he can, and they respect him, so he is continuing to remain sustained and not drained like he was at the previous relationship. So we see as it continues to play out, but then Ebihara talks about how he still had dreams, though he had everything he wanted, essentially. He still wanted a son because of the male desire, like the biological inherent male desire to pass something down onto the next generation. He wanted to pass something down to his son. He wanted his lineage to continue because that's just biologically inert in most men. But yeah, so we see this, and he's just talking about it. He's like, "Yeah, well, I don't want to teach my son baseball, so I wanted to try for a son." And after trying, they were never able to conceive a second child. And we see that one of his co-workers at the time mentioned that it could possibly be him, and Ebihara was obviously very stressed over all this and everything. And he was like, it could possibly be his sperm count. So Ebihara went and got tested and learned that he has congenital azoospermia, which means that he could not conceive a child. Well, not conceive, but not like conceive. He could not assist in the conception of a child because of his mutation or defect of his sperm. So this revealed that in fact his daughter wasn't his daughter because he had had this since congenital. He had had it for his entire life, and I believe that congenital. I believe congenital is entire life, like from birth. I'm not for certain though. So he'd had this, if not all, but most of his life, and this meant that his daughter was not his, but he didn't want to believe it. So ultimately, he ended up getting his daughter DNA tested, and in fact, she's not his biological daughter. And we see this continues to play out. And ultimately, he ends up being like, "Yeah, I'm going to have to confront my wife." But he did not want to believe it. He didn't want to believe it at all. He even tells her that if she would just lie to him and say that it wasn't the truth, then he would not pursue it. He would find a way to drop it. And we see how he mentioned when he learned this that his soul died within him because his child wasn't his and his wife was unfaithful. All he had worked for, all he'd strove for, all he'd put all of his effort, time, and sweat and tears into had been for nothing because he was not truly respected and his daughter wasn't actually his. And we see as he goes to confront his wife about it, and she doesn't lie and say it's a big mistake and that she didn't mean to. Well, she doesn't. She doesn't lie. She doesn't say that it's a false test. He was like, the test doesn't even have 100% accuracy, so I would believe it if she just lied to me and said that the child was mine and that she hadn't done anything wrong. And he was mentioned about how even if she would have told him the truth, then he would have found a way to drop it. But she just looks at him, smiles, and says, "You're awful," just like when they first talked. Ooh, this chapter was good. I love this chapter. Like this, I think this is where Haunted Peak starts like going because great chapter. Ebihara is my favorite character now because he didn't diddle a minor. Common decency, but apparently the characters on Haunted Peak don't understand that. But I love this chapter. It was so good. I love the characterization of Ebihara because Ebihara, he's just a hard-working man and he just wants to be happy, but everything around him is not enabling him, but disabling him from doing so because he just can't get a break. When everything seems to be going good for him, it ultimately ends up turning out bad. I mean, heck, look where we are now. He's living up on a hill by himself. It's just a very tragic story. So I'm ready to see more about what Ebihara does and how he actually got killed twice. Because no death has happened yet. And I don't know why his wife would kill him when she is the one who did it wrong. Maybe to save her image or something like that. But yeah, I'm really ready to see how this plays out. Because this was a great chapter. I would highly recommend getting into Haunted Peak like right now just so you can read up to this chapter. Because I feel like it's about to get really good. And like the art for this chapter was really good. I love like the final panel of her saying, just smiling, saying you're awful, because like it really reminded me of some of Tatsuki Fujimoto's like single character like face panels, like some of Asa and stuff like that, or Asa Mitaka. But yeah, I really enjoyed this chapter. I would highly recommend now getting into Haunted Peak because it's getting good. So yeah, that's all there really is to say about Chapter 8 of Haunted Peak entitled Smile, and that's all I really have for episode 144 of Shelf Reviews. So thank you very much for watching.